I wanted to focus on today, Mike's doing a great job of covering just general water treatment topics, but I think, with a lot of experience in the arena, what I see people missing the mark on the most is their off-season water treatment. They turn their towers off in the wintertime, or they have low use and they don't really pay attention to them. So what I want to go over right now is just some general recommendations on what you should do during those off-season months. So the January through March and October through December is typically the what we consider the off-season. Historically, a lot of people used to just shut their cooling systems off in the wintertime, but now with data centers, free cooling, all those kind of things, more and more I see people keeping them online just in case, or keep them online because they have to. Raise your hands if you keep your system either filled or running in the winter, and mostly because of data centers, I'm assuming, or the load's still there even in the cold months. So that's what I'm talking about, is the off-season during the low or no condenser usage periods. So first of all, why is it an issue? Why do we even care about it? What happens during the off-season is you'll get low or no circulation. If you're just shutting your system down and waiting for that random 60-degree day we might get, you're just going to have your system sitting there, or maybe it kicks on for a couple hours a day depending on need. So that would be low or no circulation. The other thing you're going to see is a lack of water treatment. Without circulation, without makeup water, a lot of times you won't be able to inject your chemistry, control your chemistry, use your controllers the same way. If it's not flowing through that rack, it's not measuring what you want to do. The other thing you're going to see is no testing, no control. Go to a lot of buildings and ask to see their logs for the wintertime. Why do I need to test in the wintertime? The cooling tower is not even running. So a lot of people just don't even test or control during those months. The other thing that you're going to see in those periods is cleaning your cooling towers. When are you going to clean your cooling tower? In the off-season, when it's not running the most. So what you'll get is a large influx of city water. When are you going to inspect your condenser bundles? Off-season. So that's 3,000-4,000 gallons of water goes down the drain. You replace it with fresh city water, and that can cause some problems. The problems you're going to see, which Mike's covered pretty well here, but they tend to intensify a little bit in the off-season, are biogrowth, corrosion, and scale deposition. Here's an example of a tube bundle of high biogrowth in the off-season because they just let it sit there. Then when they went to do the inspection, that's what you found. So that's why it's a problem. So how do we prevent these issues? First way, plan and pre-treat. Anybody have boiler systems? Steam boiler systems. Before you take a boiler down, usually pre-treat, right? You plan ahead, you lay it up. People don't even think about doing that for the cooling towers a lot of times. You really should. So what you should do is, if you're going to drain the system, you still need a plan. Just because you're going to drain the system because you're not going to use it at all, you should still plan on doing some sort of pre-treatment. What I see in the area, and maybe anybody can roger this, when you drain a system and then you fill it back up for that first the first hot month you get, you see a lot of chip scale. Maybe the water looks a little orange. That's because you can never fully drain a system. There's always some water pockets in there. You're going to get some sort of corrosion in those areas. So you can work with your water treatment vendor to try to either bridge treat or put a little more treatment in before you take it down, and that'll help protect your systems. What if you're not going to drain the system? What should you do pre-treatment or planning-wise? Work with your water treatment vendor. There's a lot of different ways to do this, so I didn't want to get too into it. But just talk to the person that works with you for water treatment to 3 things. Reduce your scale risk, increase, change, or supplement your corrosion inhibitors, and what can you do to minimize biogrowth during that off-season. So what that entails is, first, review your mineral concentrations. What happens is, and Mike kind of touched on it, is we're running higher and higher cycles, 10 to 15 cycles. You got a lot of minerals in there, and you got a lot of chemistry keeping them in solution. What happens is, when you take that system down and you don't get a lot of flow, those minerals float around, they sit stagnant. The chemistry can kind of wear off almost, and you'll get deposition. So you'll actually get some coatings forming if you don't do something ahead of time. So you might want to drop your cycles right before you take the tower down, or bump up your scale inhibitors before you take the tower down, just to give you a little more protection. The other thing you want to do, especially, this is the number one, is corrosion control. You're not going to get a lot of flow. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but if you're not going to get a lot of flow, what can you do corrosion-wise to prevent issues from occurring in that off-season. So work with your vendor. You might add more inhibitor. You might change the inhibitor you use, or you might try to increase circulation. The other thing you want to do is reduce your bacteria levels to a minimum. Mike talked about 10,000 CFUs for aerobic. I think it was like 50 for anaerobic. Go to the minimum range before you take that tower down. Get as low bacteria as you can comfortably and inexpensively before you take that tower down. Don't say, oh, I'm right up at the top of that recommended range. I'm still fine. It's better to try to get low right before you take the tower down. But, and I talked about economically, but can you also do some damage in your system? I've seen people kind of shock treat with a bunch of bleach or bromine, and then the bromine and bleach just sits in that system for the rest of the season, which can cause a lot of corrosion. So try to do it smartly. Second thing, and really if I was going to rank these 5 as to what's the most important, this should be number 1. It's just chronologically it's usually number 2. Number 1 is circulation. I can't stress enough that you should need to circulate your system. Lack of circulation results in corrosion. You get cells forming where the corrosion inhibitors that are in the water can't reapply. You also get biogrowth sitting in stagnant water, which then, like Mike talks about, has acid waste, which then cause pinhole leaks and things like that. So lack of circulation is the number 1 cause of corrosion. So all systems need to be circulated at least once a week for an hour. And when I say all, I mean every chiller, every tower that's flooded, every chiller, every piece of pipe, every filtration system. I see that a lot. People have a sand filter that they don't run in the off season, and then when they turn the sand filter back on, it's full of goop because it's just full of bacteria. So make sure you circulate every piece of equipment you have that's flooded for at least an hour a week. And that'll solve 90% of your problems in the off season by doing that. I call it a duty cycle. Make sure you have a duty cycle. Third thing, test and adjust. During the circulation period, you want to continue to test your water treatment because it's the scale corrosion, fouling, and microbial growth are still going to occur. So during that period, and typically you'll set it on your energy management system ahead of time, or maybe you'll just know that I'm going to bump the pumps for an hour every Wednesday at 3 p.m. or something like that. Also plan on doing your water treatment during that period. Grab samples, check your levels, check the bacterial levels, check your biocides, see what you need to be doing. Test more than one location during this period. Typically what you're going to see for water treatment testing is you got your rack on the wall. It's got a little spigot there. You take the sample from there. During normal operation, that's fine. Water mixes enough. Your towers are mixing. You're putting a cell on. One's chiller's running lead lag, that kind of thing. In the off season, you'll find you don't get that kind of equipment running. So you might find pockets of bad water treatment in your system. So it might be good to go around to the chiller and take a sample off the bottom of that or one of the recirc pumps and see if you're getting the same results as you are on that rack, because you can start getting more striation in your chemistry that way. Run corrosion coupons during the off season. I don't know if Mike or the other water treatment vendors here would reiterate this, but most of the corrosion I see is actually in the off season because of the lack of circulation. Continue to keep your corrosion coupons in a flooded section to give you an idea of what sort of corrosion you're seeing during that off season and whether or not you're going to have a problem. So keep them in there. Hey, how come this rack is empty? Oh, we're not running the chillers very much. That's exactly why that rack shouldn't be empty. You should have coupons in there. So continue to do that during the off season. Pay attention to changes in chemistry during planned and unplanned water loss. Now, planned water loss would be chiller maintenance. You're going to take a bundle down so you're going to drain it and then refill it. Cooling tower cleanings, when you're going to drain your cooling tower. Maybe you're going to add a piece of equipment, so you're going to have to drain a section, a couple headers or something like that. You're going to do a hot tap, so you can lose some water out of there. Those are planned water losses. Unplanned would be, the pressure valve pops and, you lose some water out of there, or maybe you got a leak in your condenser system or overflow on your tower because the level control gets stuck up and it just starts overflowing. That would be unplanned. During those periods of time, don't just, hey, I'm losing water, let's fix it. Also check to see what impact that has on your overall chemistry, because it can change a lot of the ranges that you should be running. So keep an eye on those things. The fourth thing is to maintain cycles, or what I call bridge treating. So corrosion rates versus what we're talking about. So we got copper, I don't know where the pen is, but I'll just point. Copper and carbon steel. We love pH 7 water, up a little bit. Copper, mild steel, doesn't like pH 7 water at all. So when you're running fresh city water in there, you're in a low cycle region. If you're probably below, I'd say 4 or 5 cycles, you're going to be below 8 in your pH. So you're going to be a lot more corrosive. What you want to do, and a lot of your corrosion prevention will help you do this, run higher cycles. If you run 12, 13 cycles, you're going to be up towards 9. You're going to be able to really reduce that corrosion rate. That's why fresh city water causes so many problems, is because it bumps that pH down and you get rapid corrosion because of it. So maintain the highest cycles possible without forming scale, and that'll help you minimize that corrosion. If the cycles drop, do something immediately. Don't say, oh, you know, the connectivity dropped to a couple hundred. Let's figure out what we should do. You should have a plan in place. If the connectivity is going to drop, what should you do to fix it? I think I have this on here too. New systems. Kind of a side note, any sort of new construction project you got, or anytime you're going to add a new chiller, add a new tower, add some new piping to your condenser systems, I see this a lot, especially in new construction, is they do the commissioning, they'll fill it up with water, then they'll just let it sit there. Maybe they'll circulate it every once in a while just to test out the control systems, but that's it. That's when you're going to get the most corrosion, is that fresh city water just sitting in those pipes. So if you ever have an instance during the off-season or during a new construction project where you're bringing on a new piece of equipment, make sure you get on top of that real quick. And what you can do is what I call bridge treatment. So basically, bridge treatment is an addition of chemistry during low or no load or commissioning times during new construction periods to prevent the water treatment issues from occurring. So you want to do it in the off-season, after your tower cleaning, new construction or system additions. Basically what it is first of all, clean and passivate all the systems. I can't stress that enough. Make sure the systems are clean before you put them online with the rest of your system so you don't kind of pollute them. What you can do is fake high cycles. As your concentration ratios of your cycles go up, so does your alkalinity, so does your mineral content, and so does your pH. You can add things very easily. In fact, you can go down to Aquaquip and get them. They always laugh at me when I'm going there and buy big things of hardness or big things of alkalinity. How big is your pool? It's like, it's all cooling towers, man. But you can go down to Aquaquip and buy things that will fake high cycles in your system so you'll get those corrosion rates down. And then the application of extra corrosion inhibitors and biocides during those periods is pretty key. Fifth and final thing is clean and disinfect. Mike already mentioned already the OSHA regulations 3754 requires you to clean your cooling tower twice a year. What they say is you should clean it on shutdown and clean it on startup. I think that you could probably just do a very thorough cleaning on shutdown and help out with a lot of those regulations. But they say clean and disinfect. Now, clean and disinfect doesn't mean that you just shut the tower down, take a pressure washer to the fill, drain the sump, and maybe vacuum that out a little bit. It means that you should actually clean and disinfect the whole system, which means the application of some oxidizing bleach, bromine, ozone, whatever you're using for your oxidizing biocide. Bump those up a little bit, run it through your whole system. You might want to use some detergents to really clean it up if you want to. It makes the cleanup process afterwards a lot easier if you do that. So make sure that you're actually disinfecting too, not just cleaning the system. And as I said, treat and clean the whole system. Whenever I bring this up to building engineers or chiefs, they kind of back, well, I think it's fine. I can just hose it off and that's fine. I'm getting most of the stuff out of there anyway. And what you're recommending sounds like it's going to be costly and time consuming. By doing a thorough cleaning and disinfection, not only are you meeting guidelines, so if there ever were a Legionnaire's outbreak or anything like that, you would have a box checked. It also will actually save you money in the long run. If you start up a clean system as opposed to a dirty system, the amount of chemistry you have to lose, the amount of problems, the amount of filter issues you're going to have right away decreases greatly. So it actually will save you money in the long run by doing that clean and disinfection. So those are the 5 things. Went through kind of quick, knowing that you guys would have access to this at the end, downloading it. Are there any questions, though? Nope? Okay, thanks.